Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
All right, well, welcome back. We had a bunch of new people. Maybe we can have them introduce themselves. For the new people who are here for the first time. What's your name?
Ray.
Ray, welcome, Ray. Who else?
I'm Paul.
Paul. Nice to meet you. Who else? Tom?
James.
James. Anyone else?
Dow.
Al. So, afterwards, everyone make our newcomers welcome. We usually start, before we introduce the speaker, by going around and introducing everyone's name so we get to know each other. And sometimes we add just a personal thought so that it doesn't run through the list of names too quickly. And I'm trying to think of a good personal thought for a hot day. Well, how about that? A good personal thought for a hot day. I'm Peter, and I like vanilla ice cream.
Douglas, I like fog.
Peter, I love days like this.
Bob, I like days like this too.
I'm Mark, it's a perfect day.
I'm George, it's my kind of day.
I'm Lee, I'm enjoying this experience.
I'm Gary, I'm feeling thirsty and I think my garden is too.
I'm Baruch and that's it.
My name's Joe and I like change.
My name's Rich, I like sunshine and fog.
My name's Joe and I'm very happy to be here this morning.
My name's Kay and I like kayaking.
My name's Michael, I'm also happy to be here.
David, it's a good day for the beach.
Lenny, enjoying inner quiet.
My name is Andre, sunshine's good. I'm Tony, it's good to be here.
I'm Bob and I love the ocean on hot days like this.
I'm Tom. I'm Tom and I like the way everybody slows down when it gets hot.
I'm Larry.
I'm Marty, I'm going to try and get to the beach this week before summer starts.
I'm Keith, namaste.
My name is Ari, and just can't think of anything else to say.
Peter.
My name is Ray Dyer. I appreciate buzzing with the fly.
My name is Robert.
My name is Tony.
I'm Richard, and I'm looking forward to the talk.
I'm Richard, and I'm thrilled that the heat means that red tomatoes will be in the farmer's market soon.
My name is Jerry, and I'm sitting under the sunlight.
I'm Scott. I'm curious to know other sailors here.
I'm Dean. I'm enjoying biking a lot.
I'm Jack.
My name is Dal, and I love putting my top down on a day like today.
My name is Ray, and I feel like this is going to be a spiritually hot day.
I'm Steve, and all my little sixth graders have flown away for the summer.
I'm Jim, I like warm sunshine.
I'm Paul, and I'm glad to be here.
I'm David, and I like the beach and hiking and swimming.
I'm Tom. I love days like this.
I'm Cass. I like purse-sized Evian water spritzers.
I'm Jay, and I like to sit in the sun on days like this.
My name is Mark, and I think it's very pretty.
My name is Roy, and I'm looking forward to a nice long walk on a beautiful day.
I'm Max. Beautiful day.
I'm
I'm Howard. My number is.
My name is Chris. I'm very happy Howard's here.
I'm James, and I want the good weather with me.
I'm Daniel, and I'm happy to be here.
I'm David. I'm Bill, and I'm enjoying today's warmth.
I'm Marlon, and I'm very happy to be here.
I'm Jim, and I've got some root beer, and I'm going to have a root beer float with chocolate ice cream.
All right. Well, welcome to everyone. So, today's speaker is Jangchup. How do you say the last name? Phelgyal?
Phelgyal.
And he asked not to be introduced in detail because he will tell us himself. So.
Well, I'm going to stand up and because well, it's easier for me. We brought Jerry and I brought something that we were going to hand out, but we have about 15 or 20 more people than we have copies for. So I'm going to play it by ear, and maybe we won't hand this material out. But I understand that you're interested in learning a little bit about Tibetan Buddhism. If I can explain a little bit about it. But I'm a little bit nervous, of course. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then perhaps that'll make me less nervous. I first came to San Francisco in 1963. My grandparents were from here. My grandmother lived in San Francisco, and during the fire, she moved to Oakland, and there she met my grandfather, who was the son of a slave. And they eventually moved to San Diego, where my mother was born, and I was eventually born, and then I made this trip back up here. My first real trip to San Francisco I was in a fraternity with my fraternity brother, who was gay, and I didn't think I was at the time. And we went to a place called the Rendezvous. And I saw these fraternity boys, and I was very shocked and surprised and pleased. Then we took the bus back to Berkeley at the last bus, and came one or two times more. Then I graduated, went to New York, and came back here because I'd done my academic work, but I wanted to be a writer, so I came back here and became a janitor while I learned how to write fiction. And then I would come back and forth to San Francisco. And I was in another gay Buddhist organization where they used to have a hospice center. And before I became a monk, and I remember there was a talk by two monks who've since become my friends, Buddhist forest monks. And I remember looking at their robes and thinking, oh God, I didn't really like the brown. I thought, suppose I were to become a monk. I wasn't thinking of it. I'd hate to wear those robes. Brown wasn't my color. Nor is red. Anyway, I had no idea that I was going to become a monk, but I was searching. And I think that's probably what brings us all here today. At a certain point, you realize that you've lived more than half of your life. Maybe even you haven't lived half of your life. Some of you are quite a bit younger than I am. But you would come out of a beautiful day to come into a room and sit and listen for a reason. And it's, you're hoping, of course, to meet a friend, perhaps find a lover, because we're all lonely. At a certain age, you begin to realize no matter who you're with and what meals you go to and what entertainment you have, that it's all more or less often the same thing. Things get repetitive. You're lonely and you're hungry, and the loneliness is never dissipated, really, even though you might find somebody who's the love of your life. And the hunger is never dissipated, even though you might find that you've eaten great meals and had great sex and wear nice clothes, and have a great job. There's always something missing. And that's where Buddhism comes in. I think people begin their spiritual quest at a certain time in their lives. I was raised as a Catholic and went to Catholic schools, and then I wanted to become a priest, and then I stopped wanting to become that. But I remember I was in the fraternity, and we used to always have to go to Mass on Sundays this was 1962. And I would go to Mass, Newman Hall, and then all my fraternity brothers, it was a Jewish fraternity, but it was mixed with non-Jewish guys. They all were sleeping in and having bagels and lox for Sunday breakfast. And I was going to Mass, and so I stopped doing that, and I really wasn't spiritual at all until I started doing my dissertation. And my advisor turned out to be Margaret Mead, who some of you may be old enough to know was a famous anthropologist. And the man who I was working with, as well as Margaret, mentioned that she went to church. And I thought that was kind of surprising. Meanwhile, all my family had since become born again. I hadn't become born again yet, but I eventually did myself. But anyway, Paul told me that Margaret went to church, and I thought, gee, but she's smart and she's going to church, so maybe there's something in it. So my family were all born again, and I became born again, and I was very happy being a born again Christian. But there was something missing there, and something very sort of awful, in the sense that born again Christianity holds that if you aren't born again, you can't be saved. And my brother is a very successful minister, and I explained to him that there are millions of people who've never heard of Jesus Christ. So what about them? And he said, well, I'm so sorry about that, but that's the way it is. So I couldn't hold that. So I walked away from born again-ness, and I was there for about 10 years. And I did the shaman thing. And actually, we will give you this. We will give you, if you can hand, would you mind handing this up? I'm going to ask Jerry to help me a little bit later. I'll start this from this side. Yeah, maybe, would you mind? But there's a period in our lives where you start sort of searching. And we need to move this quickly. Actually, we don't have, and actually, I really, sad to say, I understand that I'm on a very tight rein. So I'm going to go very, very quickly as soon as I get done with this. You may want to keep these because we're going to, or not keep them. We've got plenty of these. It's just the biography that I've done of you. We have more if there's a need. Oh, no. Okay. All right. Now, this most of the I'm going to give you a book of cartoons that I've sort of. When Jerry invited me here, I started cutting out cartoons. It's been about 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago. And this is a cartoon. I don't know how many of you get the New Yorker, but every week they have a cartoon that you're supposed to write something funny with. And then I saw this cartoon about 2 weeks ago, and I thought, this is kind of us. If you'll look, you'll see that the image, may I borrow yours? Please just want You'll see the image to the left is Moses, and then I guess that's Christianity, that's the devil, and there's the Buddha, and then I think that's the Hindu goddess, and then there's, of course, the pagan woman. And the cop is sort of asking this woman who's the guilty one or whatever. But I look at it, it's more like, we're kind of searching. Some of you probably have been Buddhist for a long time. Some of you don't even know what Buddhism is, or you're sort of interested. Some of you have taken refuge, and so on and so forth. So let me tell you a little bit about what Tibetan Buddhism is. And I'll say that in relationship to the others as well. There are lots of different kinds of ways of being a Buddhist. But all sects of Buddhism strive to do one thing, which is to help you change the way you think, to change your mind. Now that seems very easy, but it is very, very difficult. Extremely difficult. I mean, people spend lifetimes, in caves, trying to break the ego, trying to break this consciousness. Had you not had an ego, you wouldn't be able to listen to me. But there are some people, some high beings, who have done enough work and done work in other lives and are able to do that, to break that. I have an extraordinary teacher named Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and he's a high being. When I first met him, I looked at this little monk and I said to the nun who introduced me, I said, "So who's this guy?" I had obstacles. Well, it took me 10 years to discover that he was. I met people who I respected, who respected him, and so that was how I came to him. But anyway, Buddhism attempts to help you to change your mind, to change the way that you think. Now, there are different traditions. There's the Zen tradition, which is the tradition that I would have thought that I would have gone into because I sort of like that kind of clean Asian style. And Tibetan Buddhism, which is sort of bright colors and loud noise, and I definitely didn't want that. And that's where I ended. The difference between Tibetan Buddhism and the Zen and the other traditions is that Tibetan Buddhism holds. Let me go back to what Zen and the early traditions did. The Buddha offered 84,000 teachings, and he would gear over the course of the 50 some odd years that he taught. I think it was 50 years, I'm not quite sure. And some of those teachings, by the way, and some of his followers, later Buddhas, like Padmasambhava, did teachings, and they also hid teachings. So that when we were ready, or people were ready for them, the teachings would become available. Sometimes those teachings are hidden in landscapes. Sometimes those teachings are hidden in beings who come forth. So, in other words, Buddhism is not like the Bible. It's a continually evolving thing. Had not the Chinese invaded Tibet in 1959 and sent so many people fleeing, I would not be a monk and I would not be here. And maybe many of you would not be here because you would not have heard of the Dalai Lama. And because certainly he's the reason that I heard about Buddhism. And many of you certainly know about him because of that. Anyway, so Tibetan Buddhism, so Zen and these other early traditions hold that it's called, the vows that you take for Zen Buddhism and these others like the forest monks, it's called the Pratimoksha vows. I'm sorry, we'll never still my Sanskrit and Tibetan isn't so good. But anyway, and those vows are vows of behavior, of learning how to behave in a moral way. Okay? And all Buddhists must, of course, do that. And those first vows that you take are vows, and these are the vows that you take when you take refuge in Tibetan Buddhism, are vows that you won't kill, steal, lie, cheat, sexual misconduct, which means having sex with someone else's partner, and one other thing. Intoxicants. Now, in some traditions, if you take refuge, they will say, some people say, if you don't want to do one of them, just step back from it. Intoxicants is a big one. A lot of people like a glass of wine or have issues with drinking, whatever. And when we last did that in India, there was a group of us, and there was sort of resounding silence when it came to, intoxicants. I think only one person took that vow. I had problems with drinking, so I had no problem with taking it. I was very grateful for that. But I thought when I took refuge, you only had to agree to one. So I'm sort of... and then I discovered that it was all of them. Anyway. You win some, you break some, you lose some, it goes on like that. But anyway, so that's what happens at that earliest thing. And you begin, and there's a lot of things that go with that kind of behavior. Now, in Tibetan Buddhism, we hold that as being the grounding on which you form these other kinds of behaviors. But what happens from that is that you begin, in changing your behavior, you're stopping negative behavior. One of the things which happens is, of course, is that all of us understand that we will one day die. We don't think that that's going to happen soon. We don't think that's going to happen tomorrow. Even if some of you have a serious illness, you don't think you're going to die tomorrow. And most of us believe on some kind of strange level that we'll live forever. Well, actually, we will live forever, but not in these particular bodies. But at any rate, so those people who take these first vows and live this kind of moral life, we hold that it would take 3 lifetimes, 3 eons, not lifetimes, I'm sorry, 3 eons to gain arhat, complete liberation, which means you don't come back. Okay? 3 eons is a long, long time. Tibetan Buddhism, and let me add something here before I go on. Tibetan Buddhism came from India, and of course, coming from India didn't mean that it happened via mail or airplanes or whatever. It took 2 years of struggle to get from Tibet to India, and 2 years back, and of course, people died and whatever. So news traveled very slowly. When a teacher went to India to learn something, they might stay there for the rest of their lives. And so with Tibet being so isolated, in a way it held to a kind of a pure Buddhism that wasn't influenced by certain kinds of other elements. However, there was a teacher named Lama Tsongkhapa, who was the founder of my tradition, and he brought all of these various traditions together, and there are 5 of them. Please don't ask me what they are. Kagyu and Nyingma and Angeluk, and there are 2 others. And we all hold more or less the same things. And the difference which separates us from those other traditions is the fact that we hold to something called bodhicitta. That you seek liberation, and you seek enlightenment, but you only seek it so you seek not only, but you seek it so that others may have it as well. So you begin to live your life so that others can be better people, can find Buddhism, and ultimately can find enlightenment. And the point is, of course, is that we will all one day be enlightened. We will all beings will one day be enlightened. Now we've been moving around. I don't know if any of you in here are bodhisattvas or Buddhists. 1 or 2 of you may be. But if you're not, the point of the matter is that we have been moving through these spheres for a long, long time. We've met endless times together. This is the first time that we've met in this sort of setting, in this life. We'll probably meet many times before we are all enlightened. Anyway, so the bodhicitta is, being a bodhisattva is a being who lives for others, and bodhicitta is an open heart. And there are vows that you take for this. And then the thing which allows Tibetan Buddhists in my tradition and others Tibetan Buddhists to say this is that you can get enlightened in 1 lifetime as opposed to 3 endless eons. And it's possible to do that through something called Tantra, wherein you take the consciousness of a deity, you take the consciousness of a Buddha, and you live and act that way. Now, you cannot have enlightenment unless you also experience something called emptiness. Now, people say, "Oh, bodhicitta, I have a friend, she's a bodhisattva," or being a nice guy is not being a bodhisattva. In fact, sometimes bodhisattvas are not nice guys. Some of our teachers are very, very mean, or sometimes, a bodhisattva is not, going to just be a nice guy to you because, you need something. I mean, sometimes they'll be stern with you. Okay? So that's what's critical about being a bodhisattva. It isn't about being a nice guy. It's a kind of a way of seeing the world. And then the next level, of course, is the work of Tantrism, which is, in a lot of us, I did body electric and, and the tantric sex practices and all of that. This is not the same thing. It has some of that, but, it's not the same thing. One thinks one can have one's cake and eat it too. The tantric practices really open us up to our strongest spiritual aspects. And the nice thing about Tantra is that it takes you, many of these behaviors, like earlier when I said, the Zen and the early traditions, when we're trying to change our behaviors, that's wonderful. But when you get to Tantra, who you are is no longer an issue. The kind of being you are is no longer someone who needs necessarily to be changed. Because Tantra takes you where you are and says, okay, so you're I don't know, greedy. And takes your aspect of greed and uses that as a force to change. So that you get to celebrate what you are. And, of course, turning it to the good. There was a point I wanted to make. Tantra.
One last one.
Yeah, no. Thank you so much. Don't get old. Oh, sorry. I'm wondering if we should hand this out. How many of you are friends with somebody else in this room? Okay, all right. Well then, Jerry, and I'm sorry, your name? Baruch. Ah. Are you named after our soon-to-be president? All right. What I'd like you to do is we have, I think, 50-some-odd people. Hand these out. Don't look, Peter. Don't look. Hand them out. Yes. Yes, sir. And don't look at them until, and then those of you who know somebody, hook up.
Jangchup,
yes.
Just have everybody share.
Yes. Why don't you do that? Yeah. Why don't you just give to every other person, and then the last guys can sort of they'll have. Please turn them over because we're going to read this biography of yourself soon. We have literally 20 minutes because I'd like to leave this open to questions and answers. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, but given the period of time, there's not much depth that I can go into. But I wanted, Tantra and gayness. I wanted to tell you something about, I always believe. Please don't look at them. Turn them over. And I want to tell you something. I was very blessed in the sense that I was a real sissy when I was a child. Still am, I'm afraid. But they never, they kind of tried to protect me, but they never they never made me feel bad about that. And one of the things that I discovered very late, of course I didn't want to be gay, it was just, sort of awful to, the negatives surrounding gayness were as bad or worse than being black. But when I stopped thinking that way, I realized there was something wonderful about the gay consciousness. When I took away my own homophobia and whatever, there is something, the nicest people I know are gay men and women. The strongest women I know are gay women. The nicest, kindest men I know are gay men. The smartest people I know are gay people. Okay? Now that doesn't mean that we don't, as a community, have problems. We are sex-driven, which is unfortunate because you get attached to this business and and so that sort of open heart shrivels and all you do you allow your open heart to become just a throbbing dick, which is unfortunate because you're never going to get satisfied. Okay? But there is something about being gay that is a real gift. I remember, my best friends in school, in elementary school, we were three sissies, running around, jumping and happy, Some of you guys were not that. I mean, you were the sort of, you're the ones who made my life hell. If I'd only known, But so what I'm saying to you is that you have, as gay men, something special that you bring to the table. that you already have something that allows you a consciousness that really does invite the Buddhist tradition and the tantric work, and particularly the Bodhisattva work. Because there's one other thing that I should underline. Yes, you do the work of the Bodhisattva, you open your heart in bodhicitta, and you do the tantric work. But that will not get you enlightened. You also have to understand something about emptiness. You have to experience emptiness ongoing. Now, emptiness means, and it's a very difficult concept to understand, which is that you are not you, and I am not I, and this room is not this room, and yet this indeed does exist. But it doesn't exist as we understand it. And we don't understand that. We don't see that emptiness until you've gone through certain obstacles and overcome them and so on and so forth. It's a long struggle, but it's worth it, I understand. Okay? So I would say to you, I mean, in sort of the sanctuary of San Francisco, you have no kind of issues about, gayness. I don't know, maybe, some of you are probably married, have children, or whatever. Maybe some of you are not gay. But the point of the matter is that it is a wonderful gift, and I think that you should celebrate it, and then you should, put it in your back pocket and get on with your lives. Okay, now we're going to do your biography. How many people did not get a booklet? Did everyone get one? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well then, those of you who did not kind of look on because, make a friend, make a friend, get close. Does anybody want to give their booklet away? All right, Jerry has a booklet to give away. I'm sorry, Richard? Robert has a booklet to give away. Okay. And we're going to... Now, before we look at your books, we're going to do one more handout. Yes. Okay. Hand that out, and you may need these as well. Jerry, you may need these as well. And you can look at these. Okay? Does everyone have one? Okay, this is the story of your life. Our lives are what we make them, Mr. Felder. Are we all looking at this gray sheet? Okay. Our lives are what we make them, Mr. Felder. Now, when we talk about hell, many of us have heard, fire and brimstone. I read this particular poem by Robert Haas. If you'll turn the page, it says hell. It's what's the Japanese poem called? Haiku. Hell. If you turn over the gray sheet, it says bright autumn moon, pond snails crying in the saucepan. I don't know why, but that suddenly touched me. I suddenly realized, many people. I have a friend of mine who says, I'm not coming back. They sort of are, we presume that we have the wherewithal to say, I'm not coming back, or if I come back, I'm going to come back rich or good looking, or I'm going to come back as a Buddha, whatever, because, guy, my life is so difficult, and, I'm looking for a job, or, my boss is a drag, so I'm not coming back. Well, the reality of it is that there's only two things that go with you when you die, and that is the good you have done, the merit you have gained, and your karma. The only two things you carry with you are those two things. And then you go into the bardo, which those of you who've read the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, that's that sort of middle phase where you die and you kind of things have slowed down. Your earth element has dried up. Anyway, you die, and suddenly everything that you imagine, like in a dream, happens to you. You suddenly think, oh, gee whiz, China, and you're suddenly on a street in China or whatever. This is what I've heard from teachers. Okay, so that you are suddenly everything that you think happens, and it's terribly, terribly frightening. And if you've done bad things and you've got to spend some time, sort of suffering from that, you might end up in a saucepan again and again and again. But, most of us kind of don't want to hear this sort of stuff because we were raised as Christians or whatever. And we believe kind of in heaven, but we kind of think hell is sort of a little bit too voodoo-esque or something. It's sort of like, it doesn't make sense. But all these different religious traditions, and I think all of them have some value, say that there's some payment to be made, And His Holiness argues that, if you're a Catholic, if you're a Christian, don't become a Buddhist. Use your religion to do the kind of work that you need to do. Okay? So as I say, there's only two things that go with you in death, and that is karma and your merit. So, if you turn the pages, our lives are what we make them, Mr. Federson. Okay. Now we're going to look at your biography. If you'll turn over the first sheet, it should show. Nope, you're in the back. You're the back.
Turn the whole pile over.
Turn the whole pile over. Thank you. Turn the whole pile over. And now look at the first. You should have this picture. You all have this picture? Okay? What they believe in. Now, all of you have spent some time, I'm sure, believing in some things. Yves Saint Laurent. So on and so forth. Okay. So, and you've all been, if you look at the next picture, you've all been good citizens. You've done the right thing. If they say plie across the street, you'll plie. But if you look at the third sheet, you also know that you're naughty. You do bad things, but not too bad. You're not willing to be really bad, just sort of bad. Okay? I think it was some teacher said, some high being said, he would rather work with people who were really evil because they were committed. But we are sort of, I'll cheat on my boyfriend, I'll look at porn, golly, well, I can't imagine what.
Cheat on your taxes.
Cheat on your taxes. A lot of things. You're not really bad, but you're just sort of waffling. Okay. So do we have all of your numbers? Is this biography working? Okay. And so you meet friends and you go to, honestly, Paula, I don't know what I'd do without our daily keggers. You have friends who do the same kinds of things. You find friends to help you through the day. Okay. We go to the next one. And of course you accumulate. In America you accumulate. I mean, certainly the gay community is notorious for this, isn't it? But we all have such good taste. I mean, we should show it off, Okay, and then of course there's, I think you're in the meatballs. Are you in the meatball? Revelatory Michael, such airy meatballs. One of the saddest things, of course, is the kind of how low we have, not low, but how sort of eager we are for anything that, we sort of find a restaurant, and have you gone to this restaurant, or, Heath Ledger's death actually bothered me, saddened me a lot. But, Heath Ledger, he's dead, oh my God, what am I going to, it's like, we do so many things to enliven our sad lives, Stuff comes in, stuff goes out, it stays for a while, Heath Ledger is now on page, 84 someplace, Now it's Hillary. Hillary, no, she's off too now, I guess, isn't she? We won't go into that. Okay, so we go, but still, you don't feel like you're being seen. You struggle so hard, you go to school, you've been good children, you've been good sons, and still, nobody, you don't see yourself, but you're hoping somebody will see you and say, you are the most extraordinary person, and I want to give you money and send you to Lake Como and build you a palace just so you can stay there. How about that? And that's what you're looking for, And we all so desperately want to be, whether it's wanted, desired, cared for. You know, we all. The Buddha said, birth is the beginning of suffering. And it truly, truly is. I mean, clearly, we're a lucky group. You know, we live in this extraordinary city, in this extraordinary country. Probably, you know, you all are, I presume, doing it, you know, probably all got jobs. You know what I mean? Maybe if you don't, you're still doing better than a lot of people in a lot of places in the world. Okay? I want to talk a little bit about something called the precious human life, and I'm giving myself 10 more minutes, so that we'll be done at 5 minutes to 12, I hope. We'll certainly be done at noon. Okay? But I want to talk about the idea of this precious human life. Because some people say, I'm not coming back. Some people say, well, I'll come back, blah, blah, blah. The fact of the matter is that it's one thing to come back, but and to come back as a human being, which you've all come back as. But you and I all have something special, which is we have enough money and enough leisure to be able to be here on a Sunday. You've all been educated. You know, none of you, I saw nobody here who's crippled. All of you, I presume, can hear me. All of you can speak. So none of you are disabled. All of that is so rare. I mean, I'm sure many of you have traveled and seen. There are whole countries where people are disabled. You know, where they can't read, where they can't write, where they know nothing. And we have all of that. And so when you speak about precious human birth, don't say I don't want. I usually bring my dog when I come to teachings, when I give a teaching, because I want people to see. She's a really wonderful dog. Uncle Jerry. She calls Uncle Jerry Uncle Jerry. She's a wonderful little dog. She's been blessed by a high lama. She goes with me. She hears my prayers. I don't believe she has a clue. Okay? And yet this dog is one of, I would imagine, maybe 5 in the state that gets this kind of spiritual work. Okay, so she's in a way in a hell realm. Ignorance is what animals, you know, and she's doing pretty good. So do you realize how rare this gift of your life is? You know, how rare it is. And we, you know, kind of like say, well, you know, okay, you know, tonight after this, you probably will forget this talk by 1, let's say. And that's giving me something, isn't it? Okay, so let's say by 1 you forgot, you know, did you, how are you? You know, Richard, did you have a good time? Yes, it was very nice. It was interesting. You gave us some, here, you want these? But let me tell you, I hope you will remember that this life is so precious that you shouldn't waste it. I don't care how old you are or how young you are. Each day is precious. Let's go on. Okay. Have you ever felt like this? You know? They don't hear you, they don't see you, you don't hear yourself. You're looking at one without, you're looking at this, right? Faceless, you know? Okay. But then there's times when you're on an airplane and you feel like this. Where you know, this and isn't this true? You know, I mean, you're sitting there, there's nobody to see how much I'm enjoying myself. You know? Okay. And so you go to your unexamined life goes on, and you then sort of celebrate it. You know, you kind of think, you know, it's a goof, you know. And then finally, you understand something. You're now encased in cement. You know this one, okay? You're now. If you do business with people who encase themselves in concrete, you run the risk of them being encased in concrete. Okay, it's true. I'm sure all of you have, or many of you have gone through your what is that phase where you're that popper? I think it's poppers, and you know you've done your drugs, maybe you've done your alcohol, maybe you're in AA, maybe you've done, maybe you're still involved, but you've met people who kind of like go with you on that trip, and now you have met people here who are in this trip. You know, you're blessed to have gone through that, and now you're here. And I like to say that you're home, but it might not be home for all of you. Anyway, let's go on. But the clock is ticking, and this is life in a way, isn't it? You put yourself in this sort of, what do they call those things anyway? Pillories? Yeah. But let's look at your life. Even though this is the main midlife crisis, you know, this happens to us every day. I've got a wife, kids, a career. Jesus, I'm 12 hours old. How did this happen to me? But there's some of you who are happy campers. You can always make something good out of it. Go to the next one. On the bright side, I've really taken inches off my buns and thighs. You know, don't you just hate those kind of people? They can always find something good. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I should say, aren't they wonderful? And they are, actually. Go to the next. This is the worst witness protection program I've ever been in. Because, you know, we all are in prison. We are all in prison. Do you have any more? You have 2 more? Okay, good. So you start looking. You're looking for a teacher. And you find one. You know, you look for a teacher, but you want a teacher who doesn't sort of challenge you. You want one who helps you. So you get a guy like this. Your meter is running low. Or you go to the next one. You go to a teacher who is, you know, who kind of tells you what you want to hear. You know? You really don't want to hear about suffering. You want to hear that it's all easy. You know, Americans are very lazy. You know, people think, oh, Buddhism, that's kind of cool, that's kind of hip, you know, and you sort of sit and you know, on things, and you sort of, it looks kind of good, you know. I'll tell you something, it's a lot of hard work. It is hard work to change the way you think. It's a real challenge. And I hope many of you will take it up. Okay? I think this would be your last. Do you have any more? One more. You say that life is suffering, but isn't it also about complaining? Isn't it also complaining? Okay. All right. We have a whole other. We have 5 minutes, and we have another set. Gee whiz, where is that other set? Oh, here. Jerry? Yeah. Please keep them turned on the other, you know, face. Actually, no, you can, if you won't look at, you can look at the first, but don't look at the others, okay? Okay, have we all climbed the mountain?
Is that you?
How many people don't have this last page? One. We have. Oh, there's a lot of people over here. The first step toward enlightenment is disillusion. Isn't it? You know, as bad as gay guys are, there's nothing worse than being a drag queen. They mistreat drag queen. I never was a drag queen. I mean, a serious drag queen. I was in New York in Stonewall 2 days before the riot. It was the drag queens that created the conditions under which we all sit here in relative freedom now, because they fought the cops. They were the ones. I wasn't going to fight the cops. You know, not me, but those drag queens. They were New York drag queens. There's a difference. Okay. The first step towards enlightenment is disillusionment. And this is the other wonder about being a gay man in this society. It's changing now because, you have all of the you probably have straight friends, even the issue of being introduced as a gay person is no longer a fact, But being a gay person is allowed, a friend of mine said, being a gay person is like being a nigger. It's like a white man being a nigger, because And in fact, in a way, it's worse because they didn't even talk about black people anymore, but they can always talk about, gay people, sort of seducing their young little children. Whereas we know for a fact that it's usually straight folks that do that kind of thing. But, gay folks do it too. But the point of the matter is that being gay has allowed you to see the world, if you will do that, see the world as it is and to be disillusioned by it. Because most of you are white. And when I grew up, being white and, was like being everything. And yet you had this one little thing that made you different, and therefore you had nothing, but you had to hide it. So perhaps disillusionment came early to you. Go to the next one. Now here's where we go into Tantra. Okay? Flying around all day just won't cut it. Sooner or later you're going to have to fight some evil. The truth of the matter is that coming here on Sunday is great. Coming here on Sunday on a beautiful day is great. However, you have to sit on your cushion at home, you have to meditate, you have to do good works, you have to change your life. This thing is not going, your family, they go to church on. This is the equivalent of going to church. And how many of them ended up being good Christians? So it's work. This is the beginning of Tantra. You become a god. Okay, and then next to the last one. No, it won't last long, but while it lasts, I aim to fight as much evil as possible. That's the condition. It's true. This is not going to last long. But if you can live with integrity, which is what this evil business is, and it's not evil out there in the world, it's the evil within yourself. And if we label it evil, that's probably not a good idea to do. It's
unskillfulness.
Yes, unskillfulness. Did you say unskillfulness? Yes. Okay, and yet there is also evil, by the way. There is also some bad stuff out there. We're over killing people because of a lie. I don't know why all those our government people didn't know that it was a lie. I knew it was a lie. Many of you must have known it was a lie, But people are saying, I didn't know. He misspoke. Anyway, your last bit of biography. This is your wake-up call, change or die. What's wrong with this? What is wrong? There's a mistype in this. What is wrong with this? Change and die. Because that's a reality. Now you don't have the change part. You don't have to change, but you do have to die. And on that note, thank you. 4 minutes. Any questions? Yes.
One of the many interesting things you touched on was some kind of work in which you took a quality that we might think of as negative and actually used it. And you mentioned greed. I also think of fear as maybe another quality. Could you expand on that?
Anger is another one. To expand on what some of them or how you
how you would take that and actually use it positively.
Well, let me combine Western psychology with Tantra. Let's say fear is a response to something more profound, which is probably, let's say, anger. And you're afraid to be angry, so you're fearful, or you're afraid to sort of face yourself, whatever. Well, this is, in a sense, fear of facing your strength. As a deity, when you do Tantra as a deity, of course you're not fearful. You're not, because you are... You're invulnerable, but you're invulnerable in a very sort of extraordinary way. You're invulnerable because of the love. You're not invulnerable because you're a high being, of course, which you are. But your only work in the world, in the universe, in timeless time, is to aid others. That's all that you, and that's all that we will one day do, is aid others, help others. So your power, your escape from freedom, because fear is ego, but you have no more ego when you are a high being. Actually, and as you move through your Buddhist work, you have less and less ego because you have consequently less and less fear. Okay? And those other things as well. There's no reason to be angry with them. Yes?
So this is about your dog. But it's a serious question, actually. I wonder about our perspective that our species, with all that you've just said about it, is the higher level, and why we might not say, instead of the dog being in ignorance, it's the equanimity in the absence of illusion.
That would be nice to say, but unfortunately, equanimity is achieved in the face of disequilibrium, of anxiety, whatever. It's like, a rock gets to stand still. But the reason it stands still is because it can't walk. A dog has equilibrium. Well, she actually doesn't. If she were in, she'd be running around, whatever. But let's say an animal has equilibrium, has a kind of a placidness because it has no choice. We have a choice. We have a choice to be good. We have a choice to be bad. We have a choice to go to drink, to get drunk. We have a choice to not drink. So it's a question of people sort of, what's your name, by the way?
It's Lee.
Lee. Sometimes, particularly in America, we make a great deal out of our pets because they are pure in some way, but they're pure and they're ignorant. Animals are ignorant, and they cannot.
Very Christian.
It's not very Christian?
It sounds very Christian.
Well, maybe it does. I'm not sure, but anyway, they do have some knowledge, but they don't. I don't know. Maybe her name is Bodhisattva, and maybe she indeed is a Bodhisattva, but she hasn't let me know. And she's about ready to go to Bodhisattva heaven in a few years. I understand that you really do have a tight time frame. So why don't we cut it now? If anyone wants any questions that they would like to ask me, or maybe I hope this has generated some conversation. Maybe you will do that during your coffee break or whatever. And if you'd like to talk with me, I will certainly be here. Okay? Thank you very much for having me. It's been a wonder. It's been a long time, and we finally got together after all these years. We'll see you again next time. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it's time for Sangha-related announcements. Does anyone have announcements? Yes.
Yes, our speaker next week will be Sangha member Tom Thurston, who just finished writing a book called The ABCs of Happiness.
And do we have a host today?
Well, I have an announcement.
Oh, sure.
For Clint, I need to remind everybody that this coming Saturday, June 14th, GBF is going to do a Mount Tam ravine hike. And I'm going to put some flyers outside. It's going to be, we'll meet in front of this place, 37 Bartlett, at 9:30 next Saturday morning.
Thank you. Michael?
I just want to remind folks that the GBF annual retreat is coming up in September the 19th through the 21st.
At lovely Vajrapani Institute.
Yes, at Vajrapani Institute, which I believe is where our esteemed speaker lives. And so there are flyers out there, and there is now a link on the website under retreats. With
events and then retreats.
Events and retreats with a printable registration form. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Other announcements, yes?
Part of the work that we do is we do a project at this prison outreach, and we periodically read letters from gay prisoners interested in Buddhism, and today we're going to, and if there's some people who would like to stay and read and sort letters, that would be really awesome. It's part of the Dana generosity that we do in our practice.
Thank you. Other announcements? George?
Yes, a reminder that our talks are available on the internet at the GBF website, gaybuddhist.org.
Other announcements?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm the host, and so there's fresh chocolate chip scones, which will probably go fast, and tea. Please wash your cup if you have tea. And I'll also be coming around the Dana Bowl. We suggest $5 to $8 donation. And there's a sign-up sheet for new people if you'd like to receive the newsletter either electronically or in paper.
Any other announcements? Okay, I think we usually announce, and it kind of got passed over. Sometimes people go to lunch afterwards, so the newcomers, especially if you sort of lurk towards the door at the end when things are shutting down, little groups form spontaneously and go to lunch. I guess that's about it. So we end with a dedication of merit. Would you like to do the dedication?
Okay.
We'll stand first.
Oh, you do? Oh, and we hold hands. I just thought of singing Kumbaya more. Remember when we used to do that? Well, we've changed, we've grown, and it's kind of wonderful. So let's dedicate to the work that you and I do individually and as a group here, that the revolution goes on, that the revolution for many of us is an interior one, and sometimes we're winning, sometimes we're losing, but we dedicate the work that we do so that all sentient beings, including our pets, including fleas and mosquitoes and killer whales, all beings might one day quickly achieve enlightenment, and that we might be able to serve them in their journey.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.